child as early as we can.
Exactly. So there were some language, not really issues, but some language that wasn't really relevant anymore in terms of the way that we determine who needs academic intervention services. We cleaned all that up, so we made it really much more aligned with what's actually taking place. And then lastly, the master schedules. Master schedules, it's something that we started really in December and January of the previous year, and it goes up until really the day before we release them. It's ongoing work. Believe it or not, we still have numerous guidance counselor meetings with parents. I'm still, every day I'm coming into some tweaks here and there, having to move one period to another period, and how many kids that will impact. So it's ongoing, but we're actually in a great place right now. We accelerated the process from years past, so students can get their schedules earlier. And overall, like I said, I think we're in good shape with the master schedule as well. So classes are in great shape. Enrollment is exactly where we want it to be in each of these classes. We have, as we spoke about in some of the budget meetings, we have some flexibility where we needed the flexibility, so that if students have elected or pushed into an honors class that maybe was a challenge for them, and they find that they are not being successful there and they're looking to move, we've sort of identified 5 or 6 courses now that we would need that flexibility, and that we know historically there's been movement. We've identified that. We set class sizes in either an honors class if it's coming from an AP or a reading class if it's coming from honors. We've built in some flexibility so that we can accommodate some.
Where the flexibility is not is in terms of if I need to be in a class with my friend, or I need to have my lunch period changed so that I can have lunch with my friend. So those are conversations really that when parents call to schedule the appointments to come in and meet with guidance, we ask them. We just say, is this a true scheduling question in regard to a course that your child was interested in taking, or a course that was scheduled that he or she is not, but we can't offer appointments for parents to come to change lunch periods for kids to have lunch with their friends. Although that's important, and we would love the ideal situation, we're not able to honor all of those types of classes.
So Mrs. Fallon or John, when they're calling in, they're saying, I want to change my lunch period, and that's how you base their appointment?
We don't let them.
Some of them do, because they don't know that that's a reason why they can't. That's one of the reasons that they can't call. But most of them are requesting either an elective change that, as a result of these 2 changes, their lunch period goes to a different period because their son or daughter is talking to
The
their friends.
reason I'm asking is because perhaps we can look at the system by which we make the appointments, the way we do the online appointments for the parent teacher in the high school.
Yep.
And
We've talked about that. There's a few logistic issues with that, but nothing that I don't think we can work through. There's actually several different options that we could look at for next year to clean the whole thing up. But that's certainly one of them.
It was suffice to say the couple of teachers that we injected in the secondary system, I'm sure that's helped a lot.
Absolutely, it was tremendous. Really, in those 5 or 6 courses that we know historically kids get shut out. We want to encourage kids to challenge themselves and to take courses that they believe they can do, even if maybe they weren't recommended for. We really do encourage that, and we like those conversations, and we love when students do that. And many times they're successful. Many times when the student elects to double up in science in their sophomore year for whatever reason, they're successful at it. But sometimes they're not, and we don't want to penalize kids for choosing to challenge themselves and then just finding out maybe it wasn't for them. So the flexibility that it afforded us is tremendous. We really can't be overstated.
Great opportunities for kids.
Thank you. So I organized this by building. Every building had some exciting work going on. I'll just take you through the highlights here. There's a lot more work that went on other than what is listed here. At High School East, we had been working on repairing the track, which we completed that work success. We also renovated as part of that year's capital project. I think it was 2 years ago, the capital project. We renovated the boys' locker room area. That work was completed. We also had work done on the exterior of the building, on the area that's facing Vanderbilt. You may notice a nice clean wall that used to be overgrown. We made a paved area for students to walk when they walk on the outside of the building, because that's simply where what the traffic pattern was. So we cleared that, we painted, and we put some pavement down, it worked out beautifully at High School East. We addressed a corrosion issue at the rear of the building. We also upgraded and expanded the fire alarm system, which was one of those projects that had been on the back burner. We finally got to it and really did a great job on expanding that, the protections in that building. We corrected some sound transmission issues in the music rooms just related to construction, just to make sure that every room kind of stays to itself in terms of the sound.
You know, that was a CO, carbon monoxide, that was fire.
That was fire, and then on the next slide, you'll see that we did put in carbon monoxide detectors in all buildings, yeah, as we had promised during that. Yes, that is different, it's the fire systems. At High School West, we had rewired the media center lab for enhancements, as Mrs. Vitaliata and Mr. O'Farrell spoke about. We had a lot of technology built into the budget, and those enhancements required some work to be done by our facilities group. Our team works very closely with the technology folks to get the wiring done, so it really is a matter of us doing it or them doing it, whoever's got that capacity. So we worked a lot during the summer, making sure that the buildings are all at a great level with respect to having the infrastructure in place. We also had improvements made to parking lot lighting and renovated a portion of the library to relocate the research lab. At West Hollow, you'll remember we had the enormous abatement project, 70,000 square feet. We've completed the abatement piece. It was the abatement contractor is gone. That was followed by a general contractor to come in who was replacing or repainting grids and tiles, depending on the room. And that work is just about completed. We will need till the end of the summer to get that done, but we will be ready to open the beginning of school. We're very excited about it. The building looks fantastic. 70,000 square feet. We also were able to do the lighting upgrades that, if you remember when we spoke about that project, we had hoped to get some lighting upgrades in place, and we were able to get a nice amount of that in the classrooms. So we were very excited about that because of how we had bid out the project, and we had some really competitive prices come in. We are in the process of drafting specifications with our architect. It's a very, very lengthy process for the skylight, the atrium, that we had spoken about, part of this year's capital project, if you remember. That work, like many of the projects, the track was from 2 years ago. It just takes time to get the specs put together, make sure it's what we want, and then get that to the state for approvals. So we're working on that. More to come on what that design recommendation will be. And then power and data installations and upgrades to labs and classrooms, again, related to technology. At Candlewood, we're very excited to be launching what we did for West Hollow last year, which are security upgrades, which include a monitor at the front door, a buzzer system, closed-circuit television, telephone, intercom, and every employee receiving a smart card badge, which will let them into the building through a badge that has a chip in it, and it unlocks the door. So we are very excited to be working with Mr. Green launching that for September. We're just getting to some final pieces to make sure that that can be launched in the month of September. So that's exciting work as well. Okay, Promenade at the elementary level. Every building again here receives some work. So when we finish the gymnasium floor at Promenade, we try and hit some of those gym floors every year. Those are big projects. We were able to get Promenade in for this year. We also prepared the buildings for summer school. Summer school is an important program. What folks don't realize is that on the back end with facilities, the children that come into the summer school program, some of those special ed children, have certain things that need to go with them. So our grounds and maintenance guys take a lot of time to make sure that those things, the equipment and supplies, are at the buildings where the summer school is held. So those moves are part of what we do as well, and we make sure that, again, because it's a summer program, that the places that they're going to be have appropriate temperature-controlled rooms. At some farm, we had done some soundproofing of an ESL room. We also had replaced in the rear of the building between the building on the hill, which I think we call the annex, and the main building. We had historic drainage problems. The railing needed to have some work done to it, as well as the steps, all because of corrosion that had occurred. We were finally able to get that done once and for all. So a very exciting project that had been on the list for a number of years. So anyone going to the rear of that building, that annex is being used for classes this year. It had always been used, but it's being used on a more regular basis, so we're happy to have the right egress to that space. At Otsego, we constructed a wall in the art room at the request of the building, and we also had abatement too and replacement of some floor tiles. Signal Hill, we had replaced a section of a boiler. We made improvements to the courtyard. We did some painting in the interior of the building. That's another thing that we try and get to every year, and it was Signal Hill's year this year. And we also had improvements done similar to what we've done at West Hollow and Candlewood, and ultimately we'll get this out into every building, but we had done that same model of the monitors and CCTV and that kind of those security enhancements. And then we had some exterior cosmetic upgrades, including main entrance, awning, exterior lights. What we find at Signal Hill is folks coming into the building, and especially new folks coming into the building, where is the main entrance? Is it that one or is it this one? So we've tried to make that clear. At Forest Park, we had a capital project from 2 years ago, which finally came to fruition. We had gotten the approvals from the state. That was a roofing work on the 300 wing, which essentially is over by the library. We relocated classrooms and offices.
Is that done?
That is finishing. We're still finishing that. We've been working most of the summer on that. Yeah. Going very well. The contractor's been working out wonderfully with us on that. The relocation of the classrooms and the items to the new buildings, that was a major project for us this summer at Forest Park and at Chestnut Hill, making sure that everything got where it needed to go. We did. It was great. It was an enormous project that went very, very well. Lots of orchestration, and it went beautifully. We also had improvements made to the Forest Park and the Chestnut Hill security systems. We've had that as a project. We do that every year. I had requested working with Mrs. Fallon to focus on those 2 buildings because we just simply won't have as many people in and out every day. So we made sure that we had everything, everything's working, all the recordings were being done appropriately as we had hoped. Chestnut Hill, in addition to what I mentioned for Forest Park with respect to getting things relocated, we also welcomed our first tenant, which again worked out beautifully. We worked very, very closely with the tenant Alternatives for Children, and it has been a seamless welcome, seamless entrance for them. We work very closely with them. Mr. Feedy has worked closely with their facilities director, and it's been beautiful. It's been absolutely beautiful. Payments were made, the lease, the security deposits, everything is working out beautifully. And we're managing to that, so that's why I think it works out
Can I
beautifully.
ask you a question about that? When do they start?
August 15th, they took occupancy.
No, but when do they start?
September 1st, they started the September school. And we clean the building, prep the building for, our new tenants.
They're using our custodial service.
No, they're not. They're actually, the way the contract works with them is that if something goes wrong, if something is broken, we will come in and repair
Right.
from the maintenance of the building. But for custodial, they have their own custodial person who does the daily emptying trash cans and doing the mopping and clearing of the debris that occurs during the day. It's their own custodial staff person.
But we're allowed to walk through.
Absolutely. We have full access. We gave them keys that are specifically earmarked for them, access to their rooms only with special keys, alarm codes that are special for them, so we can trust everything.
I just thought about signage. How do you think about that?
They're going to, part of the contract includes for them to put up a sign, but we get to, they pay for it, but we oversee what it looks like. We make sure, I can't tell them change your logo, I don't like it, but I can tell them, can have neon. I can tell them that it has to be more in line with the building. We haven't seen signage from them yet. I know Tony is working with them literally every day on the details, but it hasn't been an issue. They have been wonderful, wonderful to work with.
And Ray, if they're going to install signage, they can't remove the sign that says Chestnut Hill?
No, they
can
wouldn't.
just put
They
theirs
would
in
add,
addition to, or locate it in a different place.
we're not taking down any of our signage, and if we were, it would be a bigger conversation. Yep. And then at Vanderbilt, we had relocated an art and music room into the interior spaces, so we're just doing some reconfiguration for that. We also have a new snack counter, which is a great thing because it's something that building has always wanted. We use this year. Again, we try and make improvements in every cafeteria based on the needs in the building, and this building really wanted and needed the snack counter. Kind of take some kids off the line to just get the snacks that they want instead of having to go through the one way in, one way out line just to get a snack. So we'll have a whole separate snack counter, which we are very excited about. And then we replaced some carpeting that just needed to be replaced in the speech and the band and orchestra rooms. And then we also had some just general projects. Generators, we continue to work here. Again, we had a capital project money, this year's budget for the generator here, again for the servers, to make sure that we have the backup here because this is really the hub of the district in terms of the information and electronic data. So we're working with the architect and engineers on the specifications for that generator. We're still waiting for approval on the FEMA project, so just so you know, it's not that we haven't told you, we just are still waiting. We checked in this past week and they said, hold tight, we're still working. We think no news is good news, but we'll wait to see. The continued wiring support, I spoke about that. Wireless district-wide, West Hollow will be wireless as a result of the abatement project, so very great news. Carbon monoxide detectors, you alluded to that, Ms. Fatuccia. We did install basic carbon monoxide detectors in all the buildings. We do have that process, as we spoke about when there was that issue at Legal Seafood, where it had kind of come to light, well, what do we have in place? We have the testing, we have the maintenance, we have the preventative maintenance. All the time, we have mechanics on staff who go in the buildings every day and check it, custodians who check it every day, which is different than what the issue was at that restaurant. But we also put in another level of support, which are carbon monoxide detectors in all buildings. We have the ongoing maintenance and testing that just takes on a life of its own. Underground storage tanks, hydrants, backflow, cafeteria refrigeration systems. That's going on all the time to try and get ahead of the issues before there are issues. Painting is an endless project, not only in the buildings, but curbs and parking lots, which our grounds crew takes over and just kind of fills that in as we can find some gaps. The auditorium window wall project was completed. That was 2 years ago, capital project. I've lost track, but that project finally got completed. That was the window wall that's on the kind of top right of that building if you're looking at it. Yep, great news. Had a busy summer. Modifications to transportation building related to some Department of Transportation requirements, another organization that comes in and regulates us. And then security systems kind of district-wide, just wherever we can get into making improvements, we've done that as well. So we're very busy, and that's just the highlights of what we've accomplished.
Just to ask a question about the CO2 detectors. Are those hardwired or?
No, they're not. There's a desire to not move forward with anything that is hardwired. To do it right, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and what we decided was rather than put forth that money into a project like that, and then the state comes back and says, okay, now this is what the requirement is for educational buildings, and we have to follow their rules. Rather than us trying to figure out what that's going to be, we decided to continue doing what we do because there is no requirement from the state education department for school district buildings to have some carbon monoxide detectors. So we decided to do what we continue to do, which we believe is absolutely more than sufficient because we have trained craftsmen who monitor these systems for us. Also put in carbon monoxide detectors, which would be an audio alarm. And then when the state comes out with their guidelines, which they have not yet, because I don't know if they can agree on what's appropriate, then we would look at that and say, okay, well, what do we need to do?
So like in high school, how many CO2 detectors?
I have to let you know, there are probably in high school.
Dozens or?
No, there could be probably
okay.
35, 40.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Fine.
It's just another level of support we have.
Thank you very
Sure.
much. We hope that this provided you with an overview of the work that has taken place on the educational end, the facilities end throughout the district, and we are looking forward to the opening of the school, and we thank you for your support.
That's great. Thank you for the education and what was going on this summer. Clearly, it's a lot, and it's good to know that so much is going on because many people wouldn't put two and two together that much happened in the 60 days, basically since the kids left school. So thank you for all that work. That's great stuff. Any comments from visitors?
I just had a question. The underground fuel tank, is it still at Forest Park? In other words, my question is basically, are we in a position where we could lease Forest Park out now if we had somebody who wanted to lease it?
Oh, absolutely. We're being proactive in our addressing over the past 6 years in addressing the underground storage tanks.
Okay.
It's not that we are in violation of anything. We're trying to get ahead of a regulation that we know is coming down.
Action items from administration.
Thank you, Mr. Garingswald. Dr. Harrigan?
Thank you, Mrs. Fallon. This evening, I have a certificated, non-certificated additional compensation report as well as an addendum.
Great. Would this be the opportunity for us to do a motion to take it in its entirety?
It would certainly be okay.
So I'd like to ask for a motion to take it in its entirety.
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions? All in favor? Great. So then do we have a motion to accept it in its entirety?
Motion?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Great, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Moran-Caliendo?
Thank you. The first item are budget transfers as detailed in Appendix A.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any comments, questions? All those in favor?
Thank you. The next item are bid awards. As you know, it's a very busy time for us to get things in line for the new school year. So Appendix B lists out the bid awards, bids we've gone out with, as well as cooperative bids for our school lunch program.
Great, do we have a motion?
Motion, because Appendix B was working.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Thank you. Every year, the state recommends that schools that participate in the lunch program adopt a free and reduced meals policy statement. So we take their recommendation, and that's what I put forth for you, is not modifications to it. So the recommendation is to approve what they have requested.
Great, do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Thank you. The next is the disposition of obsolete equipment. We have two categories. One is computer equipment that's currently housed here, but it's just because we're using this building as a repository, as well as gym equipment from High School East and High School West, detailed in Appendix B.
Great, do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any comments or questions? In looking through the schedule, I noticed that a bunch of this stuff was, going back some of it to 2001. So when you're dealing with computer equipment that's 13 years old, it clearly makes sense to dispose of that, so.
And they do pick apart that equipment. It's like a salvage yard down there. It's amazing. So when we get rid of it, there's really no value to us or anyone else.
Great, all those in favor? Great.
The next item is a very generous donation from the High School East Booster Club for a monument with a lightning bolt sculpture to be donated to High School East. We received word of this, and I have attached as Appendix E a sample of what the monument would look like, and we're working with them on where the appropriate and safe placement of that monument would be. I'm working with Mr. Feedy in our facilities office. So the recommendation is to accept this monument and all the expenses related to erecting the monument and the development, the creation of the monument is being paid for by the Booster Club at High School East.
Great. Do we have a motion to accept the generous gift?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Comments, questions?
Should be noted that it's the High School East Football Booster Club,
Thank
not
you.
just the High School East Booster Club, just so people don't get.
Thank you.
I know the email and the letter states the High School East Booster Club, but it's the football
Absolutely.
team.
Do they have an
Absolutely.
idea where they wanted it? I imagine that they don't want it in the courtyard somewhere.
Nope, they don't want it in the courtyard. They want it in the vicinity of the football
Near
field.
the football area.
That's where the discussion lies.
Yeah, we've had some conversations, and Mr. Feedy has been very involved in terms of making sure it's safely placed where we can still maintain access to water lines that may be underneath or some cabling,
Other fields.
as well as, not in the middle of other fields, as well as just that it makes sense.
Sure.
So we're working on that, but we'll come to an agreement that makes sense for both of us, the district and for the Football Booster Club. We also have Mr. Panaccio involved to make sure that it's not, in the line of where a team may need to play. We're working on it.
Themselves.
Right.
Yep.
And this one, I've heard a fair amount of commentary in the community regarding it, and this is a great example to me of where the community is coming together to really try and do the right thing. So it's just nice to see that there's so many people that are active around this and kind of pulling together to help the High School East football program. So it really is, it's wonderful to see that. It really
And if
is.
you look at the letter, the donation letter, it's really pretty generic. It's coming from the football booster club, but there are lots of people behind it, so they're really being very modest in terms of who's donating their time and their money and their resources
There's
to make it
there's a
happen.
lot going on there, and
Oh, I'm
a
sure
lot
there's a lot
of people
behind the
don't
scenes.
wanna be,
Yeah.
you know, there's no reason to talk about it, they just wanna get it done,
Yeah.
so. They've done a great job, so, for whatever that's worth.
Excellent. All those in favor? Great.
Okay. The next one, just to explain what it is. So we have the Hills on Stage program, which everyone knows about. Hills on Stage is funded two different ways. One is through the general fund budget. We have an allocation in the budget. And then we also have money that's set aside in what's called a T account, a trust and agency account. This trust and agency account is really like a conduit. It's an account that is set up to have money come in and money go out. And you should really end the year with a zero. What comes in really should go out. The way that this account has been managed in the past is the district funds a portion of Hills on Stage, and then the revenue from the production, ticket sales, flower sales, food sales, whatever is being generated, the playbill that's created, all the money from that, goes into this trust and agency account. And so some expenses are paid from there, and some expenses are paid from the district. It's a little bit complicated. So what we're looking to do is to streamline it. Continue the program, it will be of no difference to anyone who's going to see the production, but to make sure that this program, which we fully support, follows the same procedures as every other program that we fully support. So all these words are just simply to do this. To take the money that is sitting in the trust and agency account, this account that's waiting to help fund part of the 2014-15 Hills on Stage production, take that money, bring it into the general fund, where we have the rest of the money for Hills on Stage, and then essentially use that money to increase my budget by $18,000 into those two codes that are listed in the motion. So that the folks who manage the program, the production, will be able to do everything they need to do, but it will all be consistent and it will all be in line with current purchasing practices. They'll be able to take advantage of tax exempt status, where right now some things they're buying are not tax exempt because they're not really using district money, they're using this trust and agency account. So it'll help us better manage the program, and it'll really help put everything that's related to Hills on Stage in the same normal process and not make it really an exception. We either support it or we don't, and we do, so let's just have that follow everything else
How
that
are
we
we
do.
recognizing the money coming in? Is it a donation?
It'll come in into a very specific, we've set up a separate revenue code, 2774, so it will not get commingled with anything else and someone says, no, that's my driver's ed money. No,
Right.
nope, it will be Hills on Stage money. And then that money will then, essentially going forward, it will run like a like a driver's ed program. So all the revenue coming in
Right.
will exist in a spot, separate, and then all the expenses will exist on the budget side. So it will be a very clean, very
Right. Okay.
normal process. So it really makes sense. The program will still run the way it is. It'll just be much cleaner and much more organized. So we've been working intensively with Dr. Liller on this and the person who runs the production. So the recommendation is to have the money come in from the trust and agency account, have it come into revenue in the 2774 code, and then the next step would be to allow us to increase the budget by that exact same amount, so it's essentially expense neutral.
Is there anything else in the trust and agency?
No, I would
So then
close
you
it
close
out.
it and be
Close
done
it
and
out.
it doesn't exist
Yep,
anymore?
it doesn't exist anymore.
And that also then benefits the program because it'll provide them with additional resources that they don't have today. It may only be, $100 worth of taxes that they're
But it
spending.
will make a big
But that's
deal.
still $100 for our kids as opposed to a taxing authority because they don't have that credentials.
Absolutely. They then get all the support of everything that we're there to offer as a business office, absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's my recommendation, and I'm sorry that was lengthy, but it's been a little bit work to get us to this point to really agree on what we'd like to do.
More than the words on the page.
Oh,
That's right.
and I was being brief.
As long as it's not in color.
Do we have a motion to accept?
Motion.
Do we have a second? Any comments or questions?
Just a question, the two codes that this is being transmitted to, 400 is that's a personnel code and 500 is equipment?
400 is a contractual code, so when we have to buy the rights to the production, that would be a 400 code. If we have to get someone to come in for special lighting, that's a contractual code, and 500 is supplies. So if they need to buy wardrobe, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then the 100 codes, which we already fund, so I didn't put that here, those are the salaries, because it's already part of the budget. So when we worked with Dr. Lilla to say, well, where do you need those expenses to fall that's why we decided to put in those two codes, because that's where the expenses were going to be coming in, that she didn't have enough money as it existed in the budget to do that.
Okay, great. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Mrs. Vitaliata?
Thank you, Mrs. Fallon. For the board's approval this evening, we're requesting that the academic intervention service plan for 2014-15 be approved.
Great. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
I have another item. This evening, for the board's consideration and approval, I have recommendations for the Committee on Preschool Special Education.
Great. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Great, thank you.
Mr. O'Farrell?
Thank you, Ms. Fallon. This evening, the first item I have for the board's consideration is an appointment to the CSE, a new committee member.
Great. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Great.
The second item, we have 8 consulting contracts for students with special needs. These are consultants that we use to provide services for them throughout the school year, not go through them individually or all.
Are there any highlights or?
Not necessarily. There's in some cases they're schools, some cases they're tutoring centers that we use throughout the year.
Do we need a motion to take them all together? So do we have a motion to accept all of them together?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any comments, questions? All in favor? Great. Motion to approve them all?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any comments or questions?
I would just ask Mr. O'Farrell, could you just read the list of,
Sure. So the first consultant contract is with the Accessible Learning Technologies Alternatives, LLC. Second contract is with Helping Hands Children's Services. Third is with the Henry Biscardi School. Fourth is with the Island Tutoring Center. Fifth is with Metro Therapy. Sixth is New York Therapy. Seventh is RS Educational Consulting. And, I'm sorry, the last one, SCO Family of Services in Donna Heights and Westbrook.
thank you.
And lastly, it's not listed there, we have a list of recommendations by the Committee for Special Education.
Okay, great. So we have a motion on the table to adopt all of those
I apologize.
together. All those in favor? Great.
And then the third item, recommendations by the Committee for Special Education.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Dr. Harrigan?
Thank you, Mr. Fallon. This evening, the policy committee report includes 2 policies for second reading. If you'll recall from July, these are simply renumbering of 2 existing policies. There was no change to the language, just to get them